Well, I mean, you've seen the title, you've probably seen the thumbnail, you know what this spell is. You've heard of Warlock before, and even people outside of D&D might have heard the memes. Today's Eldritch Blast.
But you know what? Fuck real spells. You may think you're a caster, but really picking this class is purely an excuse to do nothing but cast everyone's favorite cantrip, Eldritch Blast.
Evocation cantrip, cast time of 1 action, range of 120 feet, components verbal somatic, duration instantaneous. A beam of crackling energy streaks towards a creature within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 force damage. The spell creates more than one beam when you reach higher levels. 2 beams at 5th level, 3 beams at 11th level, and 4 beams at 17th level. You can direct the beams at the same target or at different ones. Make a separate attack roll for each beam. I mean, it kind of says it there when you level up. The key feature of this, well, I say key feature, it's Eldritch Blast, it's a bread and butter, the fact that only Warlock at base gets this as a cantrip option. But also, there's the other feature everyone points to, it's the fact it does force damage, which is really nice for a spell or an ability to do force damage, because very few things resist it. I think that list can fit on this hand. And then even fewer are immune to it. It is the almost universal I want damage against this creature spell type of damage. The third feature, though, which I think is slightly overlooked, is the versatility and the fact that it doesn't just increase the damage similarly to Firebolt. With Firebolt, you get one attack and it does 10d10, not 10d10, Jesus. It uses d10 as well. And it scales still with a single target, but it still adds the same d10. So it will do 4d10, same thing with Eldritch Blast at max level doing 4d10. Eldritch Blast takes 4 rolls for all of those to hit. Meanwhile, Firebolt just takes 1. But a few things against Firebolt's favor is the fact that it's, well, I guess it has a decent range. It has the same range, actually, 120 feet. It can only hit 1 target. Meanwhile, Eldritch Blast's main focus isn't focus firing on 1 target, it's the fact that you can now, with just a cantrip, hit 4 separate things. Go look at all the cantrips. There's no multi-attack ones except for Eldritch Blast. Yes, there's areas, and technically Acid Splash allows you to target a second creature. Acid Splash has to be right next to it. With Eldritch Blast, you technically have a 120-foot radius that you can hit 4 targets in at 17th level. No, yeah, to be fair, that's a bit later. You have to be leveling up, and cantrip scaling's a bit meh, because it's a passive feature, virtually. The true power of Eldritch Blast, though, comes down to Warlock and its invocations for it, to the point that you can add your charisma modifier to each of those strikes. You can increase its range, you could give it a pull, you could give it a push. I'm not really going to be touching too many of those. That, maybe for a Warlock video. Time will tell. But even at base, without its invocations, without the notorious features that everyone points to when talking about Warlock, Eldritch Blast, bread and butter, that's all they're using, an Eldritch Blast cannon. It's still pretty decent. Cantrip, multiple targets at later levels, already a d10, does force damage, 120-foot range, instantaneous, verbal somatic, no material components. Hey! Hope you liking the video, and checking out the series, or enjoying that as well, getting to this point. Just a nice little friendly YouTube reminder of like, subscribe, share, you know, all the nice compliments. On with the video. But to actually rate Eldritch Blast, there are so many things that actually go into it. Yes, the 3 features we just described, cantrip, multi-attack potential, does force damage. The issue is the multi-attack can also be used as a mark against it if you just want straight damage against a single target. But that later comes into its favor when you add in the invocations. Alright, I'm gonna give you 2 ratings for this one. It's Eldritch Blast, it was already gonna be a special case in any scenario. So, 9 out of 10 for the base spell. Force damage, that type of damage category is great. It's 120-foot range, multi-attack, and all from a cantrip. And then it's 10 out of 10 once you add the invocations. Just for the level you get it at, cantrip, what it costs, cantrip, no material components, 120-foot range, which you can, once you add invocations, of course that's going to be 10 out of 10. There's a reason there is the stereotype of the Eldritch Blast Warlock. Look, this, while might seem good, And yes, generally spell ratings, that high ratings are, okay, good spells, or, bad rating spells, and yeah, the rating changes depending on the situation, the scenario. Issue with Eldritch Blast is it's Warlock specific, and has all the features tied to it, and it funnels a lot of Warlock players into being the Eldritch Blast canon. In my games, I have tons of homebrew and what I call gifts, some of which you can hear in the podcast Roll Trauma, but I try to... It's the fact that it's such a good option. There are other things you can pick. There are other spells, there are other cantrips, there are other invocations you can pick as a Warlock, but for min-maxing, it's just so good. To the point that it's weirdly become its own problem. This might not be the energy you expected of the Eldritch Blast episode, but it's 10 o'clock. I'm having coffee just to have the energy to run through this, and I've been hung up on how to rate or talk through this with the invocations, previous histories, the fact that it's bound to one class. Nine out of 10, 10 out of 10. Discuss in the comments below whether that's wrong, potential other builds, or... It's hard to talk about just the best option, you know? I don't know how I feel about that. Don't know how I feel.